So you want to build a digital business? It's an incredible journey for sure. But let's be real for a second, it's also a pretty dangerous one. The good news is there's a playbook for this world, a guide for actually building something that lasts, and we're about to dive right into it.
And the stakes? Well, they couldn't be higher. Because here's the stark, unavoidable truth. About 90% of all digital startups fail. Yep, they burn through cash, get outplayed by the competition, or worse, they build something that nobody actually wants. It's a pretty brutal statistic.
So the real question becomes, how do you beat those odds? How do you make sure you end up in that successful 10%? Well, I can tell you it's not about luck. It's about having the right frameworks, the right tools, and the right mindset. And that's exactly what we're going to break down in this explainer. Okay, first things first, to win in today's digital world, you have to understand that the rules of the game have totally changed. This isn't just about selling stuff online anymore. It's about a whole new way of creating value. See, it's not just about the product you're selling. Modern digital entrepreneurship is all about turning the technology itself into the most valuable asset. You're not just building a cool app, you're building a value-generating engine that runs on data, algorithms, and network effects. And to build that engine, you really need two core capabilities. The first is what we could call a digital orientation, which is basically a fancy way of saying your team's DNA is wired to innovate. The second is your absorptive capacity. How good are you really at finding new ideas, learning from them, and actually putting them into action? You need both, a fearless mindset and the ability to learn incredibly fast. All right, so you've got the mindset down, now you need the right tools. There are 3 foundational models every single digital founder needs to master. And, more importantly, you need to know how to weave them together. So let's look at the 2 big philosophies here. Design thinking always starts with empathy. It asks, is there a real, genuine human problem we can solve? It sees the user as a problem haver. The lean startup, on the other hand, is all about viability. It asks a different question. Can we build a sustainable business around this? It sees that same person as a customer, someone who will actually pay. Now here's the real secret. You don't choose one over the other. You integrate them into a powerful process. You start with design thinking to really understand the problem and brainstorm solutions. Then, you switch gears to the lean startup's famous build, measure, learn loop to test those ideas in the real world. And finally, you use agile development to actually build and improve the product. This integrated flow becomes your engine for innovation. So you've got this whole process running. What's the first major thing that comes out of it? What's your first real test out in the wild? It's your minimum viable product, or MVP. Now, a really common mistake is thinking the MVP is just a clunky, stripped-down version of your final product. It's not. Its one true purpose is learning. The whole goal is to build just enough to see if your core ideas are right, using the absolute minimum amount of time, money, and effort. The benefits of doing it this way are absolutely huge. It literally saves you from wasting a fortune building features nobody wants. You get critical, real-world insights from actual users. You can launch incredibly fast, and it gives you cold, hard data to show investors to get that crucial early buy-in to keep the lights on. But here's the warning label. Launching your MVP isn't crossing the finish line. Not even close. It's just stepping up to the starting line. The real and frankly much harder part of the journey is just about to begin. This next phase is so tough, so perilous, that it has its own nickname in the startup world. It's known as the Death Valley. That brutal period after the launch party is over and the initial excitement dies down, which is where most startups go to die. And this right here is the classic Death Valley curve. You start with some funding, you launch your MVP, you get some high fives and some good early feedback, but then reality hits. Growth stalls, your bank account starts to look scary, and all that initial momentum just seems to finish. So why does this happen? Well, this is the ultimate test. It's the moment of truth where you find out if you've built a nice-to-have or an absolute must-have. The valley is where startups that haven't found a genuine, burning market need simply run out of gas. So how do you cross this valley? The answer is the single most important concept for any startup, period. It's achieving something called product market fit. This is the holy grail. This is what separates the winners from everyone else. Product market fit, or PMF for short, is that magic moment.
It's when you've found a real group of people with a real problem and your product is the solution they feel like they've been waiting for. You know you have it when the market starts pulling the product from you instead of you having to push it onto them.
But finding PMF isn't a one-size-fits-all deal. Your strategy has to change depending on the type of problem you're solving. First up is the hair-on-fire archetype. This is an urgent, obvious problem in a very crowded market. Everybody knows the problem exists, and they need a solution like yesterday.
The second type is the hard fact. This is a nagging, persistent pain point that your customers have just accepted as a miserable fact of life. They aren't even looking for a solution because they don't think one is even possible. Your biggest enemy here isn't a competitor. It's just plain old inertia.
And the third archetype? That's the future vision. This is where you're creating a totally new reality, a paradigm shift like the first smartphone. The challenge here isn't competition or inertia. It's straight up market disbelief. People think your idea is science fiction.
And this all comes together in what's called the ARC framework. This is so important. It shows that your strategy absolutely must match your problem type. If it's a hair-on-fire problem, you have to be the best-in-class solution to win. For a hard fact, your main job is to educate the market that a better way exists. And for a future vision, you need to build an entire, irresistible ecosystem to make people believe.
Now, once you've found that glorious product-market fit, the journey still isn't over. The final challenge is scaling, turning that successful product into a large, sustainable business.
And scaling is basically a war on two fronts. You've got to master all your internal stuff, your operations, your team, your business model. But at the same time, you have to navigate a whole world of external factors like customers, investors, competitors, and often a ton of government regulations. Success here requires a whole different level of maturity.
So let's bring all this back to you. I want you to think about your idea, your project, your company. Which category does the problem you solve fall into? Is it a hair-on-fire problem? A hard fact that everyone just puts up with? Or a future vision that no one else can see yet? Because knowing the answer to that question, well, that's the first real step to building the right strategy, and it's the first step to joining that 10%.